Hi, I'm Sherrod-butler,
Hi, I'm Dante Jones.
and today we will be looking into the study of the negative effects that eating disorders have on female collegiate track and field athletes. So both me and Dante will be discussing two articles. Dante's article involves the social and mental pressures that female track and field athletes go through on a daily, whether that be with team issues or social pressures from the strive of being thin and how eating disorders can occur from that. And I will be discussing the female athlete triad that is prevalent in female track and field athletes, and that will be discussing various eating disorders, injuries that can occur, and menstrual dysfunctions that occur in female track and field athletes. So Dante's article is written by Michael A. Quinn, and it was published in 2020. And my article, The Female Athlete Triad, was written by J.G. Robinson, and it was written and published in 2013.
Okay.
Thank you.
My article talks about physical and mental pressures that it can have on an athlete. So it starts by talking about how there are a lot of athletes who experience eating disorders every year. And we need to change the team dynamics as a whole. And social pressures can impact their eating and their dieting as a whole. So the survey starts by talking about how they found that 30 million people are more likely to develop eating disorders. And females are more likely to develop eating disorders than men. And we found that this can have a very bad impact on their physical health and their mental health as a whole. So for the methodology, there was a 40-question survey that went out to 30 universities, and it took them around 5 minutes, give or take, to complete. And the factors that were included in this were vomiting, dieting as a whole, laxatives in the diet, and the other factors were involved with what type of athlete you were, as far as like were you a sprinter, were you a distance runner. In conclusion, we found that the main factors that had an effect on the athletes were team pressures and social pressures. Team pressures were likely to affect their vomiting, while social pressures were more likely to affect their eating and overall eating. I suggest that you should change the way you approach any athlete, because this can affect the way they eat, the way they train. Because not everyone can take constructive criticism, so we have to watch what we say, because this can affect them.
So in the article involving the female athlete triad, there were 16 student athletes from Northwestern University that were used in the study, and most of the things that were experimented on them were their body mass, their nutritional intake, their dietary needs, and their menstrual dysfunctions. So many of the athletes were considered to be going through the female athlete triad throughout this whole process, and a lot of them had a lot of menstrual dysfunctions included with that. So a lot of them also developed a lot of injuries like stress fractures and other variables that were included throughout this study as well. And their menstrual patterns, the participants included that they had a lot of delays within their menstrual cycles throughout the whole time. And also a lot of them did not experience any menstrual cycles for about 10 days throughout the 12 months of the study. So the studies that were used throughout this article was the EDI, which is the Eating Disorder Inventory, and it had 3 subscales that were divided into body dissatisfaction, eating disorders such as bulimia or anorexia, and vomiting behaviors. The other study that was used was the chi-squared, that grouped and tracked the various dietary intakes from them, so what they were eating on a daily. The athletes would fill that out every day and get their calorie intake and submit it back to the researchers. The next one that was included was the Manu-Whitney test, and that one grouped a lot of the athletes together to see if they were experiencing some of the similarities that were included in the female athlete triad. In the end, 81.3% of the athletes were used to be having 5 days out of the week to have training sessions that included 90 to 120 minutes per week. And also the athletes, most of them did develop stress fractures that were included throughout this experiment. And a lot of them, 8 out of the 16, so half of them did develop eating disorders. 11 out of the 16 lost their energy availability throughout this whole process, and only 1 of the girls kept their energy availability throughout the whole thing. So we and Dante wanted to look into this experiment and the study because we have experienced it. I know throughout our freshman year, there were a lot of girls on our team who were developing eating disorders, and a lot of them struggled with coach pressures and social pressures and other things from teammates about how they weren't good enough, how they didn't look good enough, and they just had a strive for thinness, and we just wanted to look into it and see what we can discover. Thank you.